All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time, here to talk about professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside of the ring, all the backstage curtain drama, also superstar news, updates, injury updates, contract statuses, negotiations, promotions from AEW to WWE to the JGC, the Game Changer Wrestling, Major League Wrestling, Stardom, New Japan Professional Wrestling. If it's big enough to be on the professional wrestling news hotline, we headline, we talk about it here on the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about real quick. We had our AEW Dynamite review. We had my TNA Ring of Honor preview, and now we're going to talk about Bret Hart on Vince McMahon and everything that's been going down in Vince's life right now with Janel Grant. Absolutely it's been bad. It's been pretty bad. We're not going to get too much into the allegations and stuff like that. We're going to mostly talk about the relationship that Bret Hart and Vince McMahon had, and maybe would have tarnished it. Maybe what would have happened if Bret Hart would have stayed in WWE. So yeah, we're going to jump on into that. But before we do any of that, I want to remind you guys to hit up that super chat box, whether if you have a burning question or if you just have something to get off your chest. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we are absolutely 1,010% all ears. We're all about keeping the conversation lively, keeping it going. We want to make sure your voice is absolutely part of the mix. So don't be shy and drop your thoughts inside the chat. And if you really want to make a difference, guys, if you want to make sure your comment or question gets noticed, why not use that super chat? Just go ahead and hit that $ below that chat box, send in the message, and it's guaranteed that you will be featured on our show. Plus, it's a great way to support our channel. Your super chat helps us keep the lights on and bring you even more awesome professional wrestling content. We are absolutely so grateful, 1,010%. Appreciate everything you guys do. I know we all understand that under this economy, money is tight. So obviously, leave what you can. But most importantly, I just want to hear you guys chat. I just want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So don't be too worried there. Your support makes all the difference here at the GSMC Sports Network. So let's keep this conversation going. Send in those super chats, those super stickers, because you guys are super awesome. And together, we will make sure that this show is better, bigger, and stronger than ever. So if the super chat is also not your thing, we are still at the GSMCpodcast.net. Hit up that tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Go ahead and Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show. Follow the network here at the GSMC Sports Network. We do love a lot of peace, love, and positivity, 1,010%. So yeah, don't be shy. Go ahead and hit up that chat. It should be awesome. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. All right, so we're going to talk about the best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be. Bret the Hitman Hart recently was asked in an interview how he feels about this, basically everything that's going down with Vince McMahon, with the Janel Grant, basically selling all of his shares to TKO and WWE, kind of essentially just kind of like, kind of disappearing a little bit, like being like, you know what, like I don't really want to be part of this anymore. A lot of negative publicity, and it's sad. It's sad to a point, but Bret Hart was absolutely like he hates Vince. He, it's just kind of keep it up. But well, I don't even know if I can say that positively, but we're gonna talk about it here. We saw the reaction, all the negative publicity surrounding Vince McMahon and the Janel Grant allegations. And Bret Hart had this to say, and I quote, "I'm going to speak my truth. I'm not worried about Vince's feelings. He never cared about mine." Obviously, there was a lot of stuff that happened between Vince McMahon and Bret Hart. Bret Hart was offered basically a lifetime 20-year contract under WWF, WWE policies. And it was agreed. It was one of the biggest contracts, and basically, it was one of the biggest contracts in terms of sports history. If it was done, still today, we'd be like, it's kind of like, watching Aaron Judge sign with the New York Yankees, or watching Patrick Mahomes sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was like one of those things where it was like, it was a big deal. It was a lot of money, but at the last moment, Vince promised Bret, um, that he was going to go through with the deal. At the last minute, he pulled out, basically, stroking his ego a little bit, that Bret likes to call. Basically, I'm Vince McMahon. Why am I letting wrestlers, basically show me what to do? We are the hottest wrestling product in WWE right now. And also at that time, you also had a lot of young rising stars kind of growing into WWE. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin. You also had Mankind. You had the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, which was kind of a, Bret the Hitman Hart's kind of pre-successor a little bit. Then also you have Triple H, Paul Levesque, and you had a lot of people like right in line to become that next guy. But Bret Hart ultimately thought that WWE was going to take care of him. Vince McMahon in general was going to take care of him. But at the last minute, kind of backing out of a deal, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's just not good business. The best way to conduct business, you look a man face to face, stare, eye to eye, you shake hands. A man is only as good as their word. And when I mean a man, a woman, a person is only as good as their word. Integrity, doing the right thing when no one's watching. Also, the fact that, that's just good business. That's, if you don't trust someone you're in business with, there's always going to be that what if. There's always going to be that lingering thing behind it. Like, you know what? I don't really trust this guy. It's a little shady. Don't get involved in business in terms of, shady people and stuff like that. So, Bret Hart, I feel like was ultimately screwed that way as well. And he was ultimately screwed in the Montreal screw job in Canada. And that it was bad. It was bad. I felt bad for Sean, but obviously you had Vince McMahon, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels kind of be like, you know what, if Brett doesn't want to do business, then F him. Basically, they're like, you know what, screw him, let him, grab his bottle, take his ball, and go home. And he ran all the way to WCW, which was a mistake. He could have been great in WWE. I feel like winning championships with Bret Hart he was a great wrestler. The fans, the locker room respected him. Like I think Pat Patterson said it in an interview that everybody out there, if they had a chance to go out there and wrestle with any other superstar, any WWF superstar out there, it was Bret the Hitman Hart because he could make himself look very successful inside the ring. But at the same time, he could make you seem like you are a rising star. That's how Bret handled his business. That's how he handled his stuff inside the ring. And he was essentially doing that once when he was putting young wrestlers over. And, I don't know, like with Bret Hart being kind of screwed over, what if, he could have been more than a 16-time world champion. He could have won more titles than Ric Flair and Triple H. He could have been better than Shawn. They could have way bigger feuds than that. You could have had a lot more, even in benefits in terms of Canadian wrestling. Canadian wrestling would have probably came out a little bit more sooner if you had Bret the Hitman Hart being represented on a major wrestling promotion like WWE Raw, the newly formed, SmackDown in 2000. Um, it could have been big. It could have been big. Obviously, I feel like on both sides there was a little because you did have Bret Hart. He kind of had that attitude, kind of had that. He was a little self-centered, narcissistic. But at the same time, if you are the best at what you do, and if you're like the main man of the company, you can kind of act that way. I'm sorry, but like you got to respect yourself as well. You're like, look, I deserve a big contract because what's gonna happen? Like if I don't get paid, something might happen, and you guys are done with me. Financial security is probably the quote unquote American dream nowadays. It's kind of crazy that people are just basically taking 9 to 5 jobs just to kind of, make ends meet. Being like, oh, I gotta, you're kind of a slave to the US currency, the US dollar and stuff like that. And, it kind of sucks. It sucks. But at the same time, like, you got to go out there and handle your business, do what makes you happy. And that's something that Bret Hart was doing in WWF. Obviously, you saw the lines blurred once when you had Vince McMahon, kind of feel like he was kind of larger than life. Vince's ego is highly larger than life. So, I don't know. It's kind of crazy how that kind of all worked out there. It's kind of crazy. Bret Hart, liking the man, comparing like the man by meaning Vince McMahon. By comparing him to recent history's most deplorable human beings, he said, and I quote, "It's like Jeffrey Dahmer Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, Vince McMahon is a joke. That hurts. That's crazy. Just the just thoughts like that. It's not good, man. That's terrible. So let's move on before anything bad happens. Uh, and he said, and I quote, "I think despite of all the issues I've ever had with Vince, I know deep down inside I've always respected him. But now knowing what kind of weirdo he became, I absolutely have zero respect for him. Brett was a top wrestler in the WWE during the 90s. Vince McMahon offered him a lifetime contract due to his success, but ultimately betrayed him. People consider Bret Hart as the GOAT of the Montreal Screwjob. Obviously, Bret didn't want to lose the belt. He, wanted to win in Montreal, his hometown, and basically, kind of walk out of WWE the champion. And Vince McMahon, he had this rule where he absolutely never let anybody leave with the belt. You had him talk to Sean and stuff like that, which could have put Sean in, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and like seeing how Bret Hart was kind of, after the match, spit on Vince McMahon, kind of rallying the crowd out to be like, hey, like I was just screwed out by this guy. I'm going to WCW, like spit, and he spelled like WCW. And unfortunately, it sucks for Bret Hart. It sucks for Bret Hart because he went to WCW. He was under a wrestling promotion that at first was good, but it declined very, very fast. They let wrestlers like Bill Goldberg take the reins in matches. He told Bret Hart to watch out for the kick. I don't know if he didn't say it loud enough, or I don't know if he has selective, mind impairments and stuff like that. But Bret Hart claims that nothing never happened like that. He wrestled with, basically people who didn't have experience, ultimately costed him his whole entire career. He got hit in the head, started getting concussions, was nauseous. His room was spinning around. He had to quit something that he loved so damn much, something that he was very, very good at. He's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. You saw Bret Hart basically forfeit his career because, and I would be pissed too. And he's not like he's pissed at WWE and Vince McMahon, like, hey, like the Montreal screw job and basically the contract you guys gave me, screw you guys. It's just that he knew. He knew deep down inside that if he stayed with WWE, he would have been so damn impressive. He would have been so damn successful. Instead of wrestling at indie events, doing contract signings, doing guest appearances on shows and other wrestling promotions that were below the WWE. Like he didn't have to deal with that bull crap if he would have stayed in WWF. But for him, he thought, and much to his, what he thinks, it's correct. If Vince McMahon would have honored that contract and never would have betrayed him, he would have stayed in WWE. Probably would have never got injured. Probably would have been one of the highest rated WWE champions, and he still is, even though he does not have those accolades. He would have been great. He would have been great for WWE. He even recently said, in an interview with Ringside News that, what Triple H is doing on WWE, he feels like ultimately he could have been put in that spot. He's a wrestling genius. And if he would have stayed in WWE, inducted into the Hall of Fame, and eventually going backstage behind the curtain in terms of like creative minds and stuff like that, I feel like WWE would be in a way better position than it was before Paul Levesque took over, before Vince McMahon ultimately, was like, it's time to retire. I can't take any more lawyer fees and legal fees and stuff like that. I feel like Bret Hart definitely could have been the lifeblood of WWE, would have kept it going, definitely would have put a lot less pressure on Shawn Michaels when he was dealing with his thing, in the early 90s. But lo and behold, we have what it is today. That, Bret Hart hating on Vince McMahon, kind of basically screwing him out of a position that he was basically like guaranteed. So, I don't know, it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, guys. Hey, do not go anywhere. We're gonna jump on into our fourth segment. We're gonna talk about the cruiserweights. We're talking about WWE speeds, pros, and cons. So you go ahead and grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite drink, and join me here in about like 20 seconds. As soon as I find it.